There are words that seem harmless but leave you aching for years. Glances that look away but pierce through everything inside you. Moments when you smile just to survive another day, pretending to be okay when you're quietly falling apart. But what if I told you the pain wasn't caused by them, but by something already living inside you? What if I told you there is one thing, just one, that could take away their power to hurt you forever? Would you ignore it? Or would you stop and listen? Because after this, pretending to be strong will never work the same way again. They say you're strong. They look at you and see someone who holds it all together. Someone who doesn't cry in public. Someone who smiles even when their world is burning inside. But no one ever asks what it costs to wear that mask every day. No one sees the way your jaw tightens when you swallow your emotions. No one hears the way your heart whispers at night, begging you to stop pretending. Maybe you've become the person everyone relies on, the one who always says I'm fine, even when you're falling apart. And maybe you've played that role for so long, you've started believing it's the only version of you worth showing. But what if I told you that real strength was never about being untouchable? What if the very thing you're running from, the pain, the fear, the tiredness, isn't a weakness but a signal? You weren't born to survive through numbness. You weren't meant to carry the world while abandoning your own heart. Carl Jung once said, "We are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become." And maybe now, for the first time, you're starting to feel it, the quiet nudge from somewhere, deep inside, telling you this isn't living, this is enduring. You don't have to keep holding it together for everyone else. You don't have to keep pretending that things don't hurt. Because beneath all the layers, there is still a you who wants to be seen. Not for being invincible, but for simply being real. And that voice, the one you've been silencing for years, is not weakness. It's your soul, asking to come home. You've spent so much time trying not to feel the pain, so much energy avoiding it, burying it, pretending it doesn't matter, and for a while it worked. Or at least that's what you told yourself. You got through the day, you played your part, you smiled through discomfort and kept the silence when it screamed inside. But what no one told you is that pain doesn't disappear when ignored. It simply finds new ways to speak. The anxiety that shows up out of nowhere, the sudden anger that makes no sense. The numbness when you're supposed to be happy, those aren't random. They're echoes, signals from wounds you never looked at. You think you're protecting yourself by staying away from what hurts. But in truth, you're only tightening the chains that keep you trapped. Because as long as pain stays hidden, it stays in charge. The more you try to control your emotions, the more they end up controlling you. And the scariest part is, you won't even know what's happening. You'll think you're strong, when really you've just become emotionally blind. Carl Jung warned us that what we do not make conscious will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. And that's exactly the trap you're in. Thinking people hurt you, thinking circumstances break you, but the truth is, they're only pressing on something already cracked. You can spend your whole life rearranging the outside, cutting people off, building walls, trying to avoid betrayal. But if the wound is still inside, life will keep finding ways to touch it. This is the invisible trap, believing avoidance is healing. Believing distance equals safety, when in reality, everything you push away only grows stronger in the dark. And one day, without warning, it takes over. You don't need more protection. You need more presence. Because pain doesn't destroy you, unconsciousness does. You think what breaks you is out there. The harsh words, the rejections, the betrayals, the people who leave without warning. But the truth is darker and much harder to accept. Because nothing outside really has the power to hurt you unless it finds something inside you that's already wounded. Pain is not caused by the world. Pain is activated by it, triggered like a switch hidden beneath your skin. And if it still hurts that much, it means the wound is still alive, still open, still waiting to be seen. You want to stop feeling helpless, but every time someone pulls away, every time you're ignored, every time things don't go as planned, something inside collapses, not because of them, but because of an old story you've never rewritten. Maybe you were told you had to be perfect to be loved. Maybe you learned early on that your needs were too much, your voice too loud, your sadness too inconvenient. So you became what they wanted: quiet, strong, untouchable. But that version of you was built on pain, not peace, on fear, not freedom. And now, when life presses against that mask, when someone doesn't respond the way you hoped, the mask cracks, and the wound screams. Jung said, "We suffer because we believe we can control how others treat us, and as long as we chase that illusion, We remain prisoners of their approval, their moods, their love. But control was never the answer. Clarity is because freedom doesn't come from being safe. It comes from being aware. And once you realize that no one can touch you unless they touch a part of you that hasn't been healed, the whole game changes. You stop asking why they did it and start asking why it still hurts. And in that question, something shifts. Because that's where the real work begins. Not in avoiding pain, but in understanding why it lives where it does. You've been trying so hard to be good enough, to be smart enough, kind enough, calm enough, hoping that if you just get it right, people won't leave, words won't sting, love won't vanish. But the truth is, this endless striving is not strength. It's fear wearing a mask of perfection. You're not chasing growth, you're chasing immunity. Believing that if you become the right version of yourself, no one can hurt you. But that's not empowerment. That's emotional captivity. You try to manage how others see you, control how they speak to you, predict how they might disappoint you, but in doing so, you become a puppet of their reactions, your peace tied to their behavior, your worth dependent on how gently the world treats you. You think control gives you freedom, but it actually gives the world more power over you, because everything still depends on them, not you. Jung said, as long as you believe people must change for you to stop suffering, you will remain enslaved. And you are, every time you try to fix the outside to calm the chaos within. So you overthink your words, try not to upset anyone, walk on eggshells in relationships, hoping that being careful is the same as being safe. But it's not. It only deepens the tension, because you're fighting the wind, trying to organize what can't be organized. And even when it seems to work, when no one's angry, when things look fine, you're still exhausted, because peace built on control is never real peace. It's a constant performance. True freedom doesn't come from managing the storm. It comes from knowing you're not made of glass. You don't need more strategies. You need more stillness. Because the moment you stop trying to be untouchable is the moment you stop needing protection. And in that surrender, you find a power no one can take away. You reach a point where nothing outside explains the weight you carry. People speak kindly, life looks calm, yet something inside still aches, still sinks, still breaks without warning. And that's when it begins. The quiet collapse no one sees coming, the spiritual crisis that has no name. It doesn't scream, it doesn't rage, it just strains you slowly, like a soft unraveling of everything you thought you were. And the worst part is, you don't know why it's happening. You just feel lost, heavy, disconnected from everything, even from yourself. Jung called this the confrontation with the unconscious. The moment when all the parts you've ignored, rejected, or buried finally demand to be seen. It's not depression, not exactly. It's not anxiety either. It's deeper, like your soul is tired of pretending, tired of holding up the mask, tired of living someone else's version of you. You find yourself staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering why success feels hollow, why relationships feel distant, why even joy doesn't taste the same. And the truth is, it's not the world that changed, it's you. The persona you built to survive no longer fits the life you crave, and everything in you starts to resist, to question, to shake. This is not weakness, this is awakening. But before you rise, you will fall, and that fall is sacred. Carl Jung said that neurosis is the suffering of a soul that has not discovered its meaning, and now you are being invited to discover yours. But this journey doesn't start in light, it starts in shadows, in the grief of letting go of the version of you that pleased everyone but left you empty. You're not broken, you're shedding, not lost, but being reassembled. And this confusion, this pain, this silence, it's not the end, it's the entrance, the moment before rebirth. The moment your unconscious begins to whisper, not to destroy you, but to bring you home. You've been told that strong people don't cry, that silence is grace, that detachment is power, so you trained yourself to be untouchable, to not flinch when they disappoint you, to not react when they ignore you. But deep down, you know, it's not strength, it's armor, and armor gets heavy. You say you don't care, you say nothing gets to you anymore. But your chest feels tight, and your nights feel hollow, and the more you try to stay composed, the more you crumble in secret. This isn't resilience, this is repression, the quiet kind that doesn't scream, just suffocates you over time. Jung reminded us that knowing all the theories is not the same as touching a soul, and your soul hidden behind this performance of control is starving for truth. The mask of strength is not strength. The real power comes from the moment you no longer need to act. You've mistaken numbness for peace, distance for clarity, and indifference for healing. But real healing doesn't come from pretending pain doesn't exist. It comes from letting it teach you. You become truly untouchable not by avoiding emotion, but by embracing all that you are, even the parts that feel too much, too messy, too raw. The moment you accept what you feel is the moment it stops owning you, because what you've buried hasn't disappeared, it's just been shaping you from the shadows. You keep wondering why certain people trigger you, why small things break you, and the answer isn't out there. It's in the pieces of yourself you still refuse to hold. You don't need to be colder, you need to be clearer. Because emotional strength isn't hardness, it's honesty. The kind that says I'm hurt, but I'm still whole. I'm vulnerable, but I'm not weak. You stop being reactive when you stop being afraid of your own depth, and that's where real freedom begins. You've spent your whole life trying to become better, calmer, wiser, more loved, thinking that healing means becoming someone new, someone polished, someone finally worthy. But Jung taught us something radical, that the goal is not perfection, it's integration. You're not here to erase your flaws, you're here to meet them, not to silence your fears, but to listen, not to become someone else, but to finally return to who you were before the world told you to fragment. All your pain, your shame, your insecurities, your doubts, they're not mistakes, they're messengers. And when you stop rejecting them, when you stop amputating parts of yourself to be accepted, something powerful begins to unfold. This is individuation. The quiet rebellion of becoming whole, the process of walking back into your own body, your own truth, and gathering every lost piece like broken glass after a storm. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it's uncomfortable, because, for the first time, you're feeling without filters. You're shedding the armor, stepping out of the mask, letting your soul breathe without permission. But in that rawness, something changes. You stop living for applause, you stop fearing judgment. You stop needing to be chosen, because now you've chosen yourself. That's when freedom arrives not as a rush, but as a quiet certainty that says, I am no longer a puppet of my past, no longer at war with my emotions, no longer edited to be palatable. You are still tender, still growing, still figuring it out, but now you are real, and in that realness, you become untouchable, not because nothing hurts you, but because nothing defines you anymore. And that is the moment where pain ends and presence begins. You thought that becoming whole would feel like celebration, like light pouring in, like finally belonging. But what no one tells you is that awakening doesn't start with peace, it starts with distance. When you begin to change, everything that was built around your old self starts to crack. Conversations feel empty, relationships feel misaligned, and the places you once fit begin to feel foreign. It's not because you're better. It's because you're different now, and difference is often mistaken for rejection. You'll notice the silence, the way people pull away, not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence now mirrors something they're still afraid to see in themselves. And it hurts, it confuses you, because you thought healing would bring connection, but instead, it brings separation. This is the price of truth, the quiet space between who you were and who you are becoming, and very few will walk that road with you. But solitude is not punishment, it is sacred space, the incubation of clarity, the pause between the shedding and the becoming. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that privilege often costs you comfort, community, and even the version of you that everyone once applauded. But don't go back just to be held, don't shrink to stay close, because the ones who truly see you will not require you to dim your light. You are not alone, you are simply ahead. And while the world still dances in distraction, you've chosen depth. And yes, it gets quiet, but in that quiet, you'll hear something you've never heard before, the sound of your own soul, finally speaking without interruption. You've spent years building walls, crafting the perfect image, trying to become so strong that nothing could touch you. But now you know, strength was never about resistance, it was about awareness. The world doesn't stop being unpredictable. People don't stop disappointing you. Pain doesn't vanish just because you change, but something inside you does. The way you respond, the way you see, the way you hold yourself when everything else breaks. That's what awareness gives you, immunity from life, but the clarity to walk through it without losing who you are. Jung said, what you resist persists. and what you accept transforms. And now, you're no longer resisting. You're seeing, naming, understanding, and in that seeing, you are no longer ruled by your past, your patterns, your fears. You still feel, but you don't drown. You still hurt, but you don't crumble. Because your center is no longer built on performance, it's built on presence. Life may still knock, but it won't find a door to break through, because you are not hiding anymore, you are awake. This is the real shield, not pretending to be untouchable, but knowing yourself so deeply that nothing outside defines you. Awareness is not a state, it's a practice, and every day you choose it, you choose freedom. So if you've made it here, if something inside you has stirred, it's not by accident. You're not weak, you're not behind, you're exactly where you're meant to be. And now, your real journey begins, not to become someone else, but to finally live as who you already are. Keep going. The world needs people who've stopped pretending and started feeling. People like you. You didn't come this far just to understand. You came here to remember, to reclaim, to begin again not from scratch, but from truth. You've seen the mask for what it is. You've faced the pain without flinching. You've heard the voice within you that's been waiting for years to speak, and now, there's nothing left to hide behind. You no longer need to fix yourself to be worthy, no longer need to prove your softness is strength. Your tears are sacred, your story matters, and your presence doesn't need permission. This is not the end of your pain, but it is the end of your avoidance, and that alone changes everything. Because from here on, you don't live to avoid being broken, you live to stay connected, to stay conscious, to stay whole. When the world tests you again and you won't run, you won't shrink, you won't explain yourself to be understood, because the only thing you'll need to return to is your center. And now, you have one. It may tremble, it may bleed, but it will never vanish. Because it's built from something real, willingness to face what hurt you and meet it with presence. This is your power, this is your path. Not a clean escape, but a conscious walk through every part of who you are. And from this place, no one, not their silence, their judgment, their betrayal can ever own you again. The journey doesn't end here, but for the first time, it's yours. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's the truth. Jung left us. And now, it's yours. Because the real breakthrough doesn't come when the pain stops, it comes when you finally understand where it comes from. You are not broken, you are becoming aware. And awareness is how you begin to live, not as a reaction, not as a victim, but as the author of your own transformation. If this awakens something in you, don't stop here. There's more waiting in the silence. Subscribe, and let's keep going one layer deeper.